The Senate judges that the respondent, Donald John Trump, former President of the United States, is not guilty as charged in the article of impeachment.
Tonight, breaking news: Donald Trump not guilty of inciting an insurrection at the US Capitol last month, with the United States of America now looking more divided than ever before. We'll have special team coverage in just a moment. It's Sunday the 14th of February. You're watching 6 News. Also tonight,
we must assume that there are further cases in the community than we have positive results for.
Victoria enters a 5-day lockdown over fears that the virus is out of control. Schools closed, visitors banned, and state borders slammed shut. The latest details coming up shortly. And the end of Eddie, Collingwood's longtime president, quits after heavy backlash to his comments about allegations of systemic racism within the club as the search for a permanent successor begins.
To my old mate Joffa Korf and my beloved Magpie Army, I'm with you all, side by side, black and white forever. Good luck to all. Floreat Pika, may the Magpie flourish, and go Pies.
Good evening. The United States of America may be more divided than ever before tonight, with former President Donald Trump found not guilty of inciting an insurrection on January 6. Many Democrats calling this a dark day for democracy, while prominent supporters of the 45th Commander-in-Chief are rejoicing. Chief Reporter Connor Forcate begins our coverage.
Donald Trump's impeachment trial has fizzled to a predictable end, acquittal, meaning Trump 2024 could become a reality.
The yeas are 57. The nays are 43.
A divided US Senate voted largely on party lines, but 7 Republicans did break ranks. A total of 57 senators voted to convict Trump, falling well short of the 2/3 majority needed for a guilty verdict. The 45th US president acquitted of inciting the deadly insurrection at the Capitol. In a statement, Donald Trump welcomed the news, thanking his legal team and the 43 senators and members of Congress who voted not guilty. He described the trial as the greatest witch hunt in the history of our country and accused the Democrats of turning justice into a tool of political vengeance.
This was about choosing country over Donald Trump, and 43 Republican members chose Trump. They chose Trump. It should be a weight on their conscience today, and it shall be a weight on their conscience in the future.
I fear, like many of you do, that the violence we saw on that terrible day may be just the beginning. We've shown you the ongoing risks, the extremist groups who grow more emboldened every day. Senators, this cannot be the beginning.
The historic decision follows 5 chaotic days of hearings. This morning there was disorder and confusion after Democratic impeachment managers made the surprise move of calling witnesses. That could have extended the impeachment process for weeks longer than expected, but they later backed down on that call for witnesses to testify. Yesterday, on day 4 of the trial, Trump's legal team were given 16 hours to make their case. They used just 3. Such was their confidence that Trump would be acquitted.
It is time to bring this unconstitutional political theater to an end.
Donald Trump is the only US president ever to be impeached twice, and the first US president to face such a trial while out of office. Of the 4 impeachment trials in US history, Trump owns half of them. Acquitted of both, the verdict has an air of inevitability because the convincing 17 Republicans, among whom the president is still popular, to cross party lines was always going to be difficult. So what does Trump's acquittal actually mean? Well, the final vote brings an end to the impeachment process and means that no one can stop Trump from running for office again. But does the verdict actually mean that Trump is innocent? Well, that depends on who you ask. Some may say that this acquittal proves that former president's innocence, while others believe that while Trump incited an insurrection, his actions didn't warrant a ban on ever again holding office. In that statement released just moments after the vote concluded, Trump himself hinted at a return to the public stage, saying, "In the months ahead, I have much to share with you." We'll just have to wait and see what he has in store.
Meanwhile, shocking new details have emerged about last month's storming of the US Capitol. Court documents read during Donald Trump's impeachment trial claimed that rioters planned to kill Mike Pence and put a bullet through the skull of Nancy Pelosi.
In the charging affidavit of one of the leaders of the Proud Boys, we learned that members of this group said, I'm going to quote, "They would have killed Mike Pence if given the chance." In another, we learned of a tweet in real time while they were in the building stating, "We broke into the Capitol. We got inside. We did our part. We were looking for Nancy Pelosi to shoot her in the frickin' brain, but we didn't find her."
And this previously unseen footage released by the impeachment managers from the Democratic Party shows how close they got, meters away from Mike Pence, Mitt Romney and Chuck Schumer. US correspondent Jackson Gosnell has more.
Well, Leo, a busy week here in America as House impeachment managers lay out their case against former President Donald J. Trump. They say he incited an insurrection after the deadly assault on the Capitol in Washington. That happened on January 6th as lawmakers met to certify the election results for Joe Biden. Now, what we're learning is the House managers presented their case through a several-hour testimony and by showing videos of the events that happened, including some security footage of the vice president being taken to safety and an officer helping senators to get to safety and away from this pro-Trump mob that went inside the Capitol and done some damage. Some people even died as well. And then President Trump's attorneys are laying out their case about why he did not. They claim that Democrats took the president out of context in his speech where he said to fight like H-E-L-L. Of course, we won't actually say that on air here, but we do know that they are trying to use that against him. His lawyers are saying that he said to peacefully assemble. And so it is just an ongoing situation that is taking on a lot of controversy because some Democrats are really pushing Republicans to vote to convict the president or the former president of this actual charge. So we will have to see what happens. In order for the president to be found guilty or convicted in the Senate, all Democrats and 17 Republicans would have to agree and come together, which is unlikely to happen according to some insiders on Capitol Hill. So we'll be sure to follow the very latest and keep you up to date. I'm reporting in the U.S. I'm Jackson Gosnell. Back to you.
And on a bit of a different note, this isn't the first time, of course, we have seen Donald Trump impeached. Here's how we actually covered his impeachment trial back in February after he was acquitted of all charges. Donald Trump not guilty, meaning he will remain US president. What next for the Democrats after months of chaos in Washington?
He is hereby acquitted of the charges.
Here's some of what he had to say following the announcement.
If this happened to President Obama, a lot of people would have been in jail for a long time already, many, many years. We've done, I think, more than any president and administration, and really, I say, for the most part, Republican congressmen, congresswomen, and Republican senators. We've done more than any administration in the first few years. You look at all of the things we've done.
God love that old theme there. And of course, for the latest on the second impeachment trial, simply head to our social media pages, Facebook, Twitter and Instagram, and follow us for 24/7 breaking news coverage. To the other big story tonight, and Victoria has entered day 2 of a 5-day stage 4 lockdown after the hotel in COVID-19 cluster exploded. More hotel quarantine workers and primary household contacts have now tested positive with virus fragments detected in wastewater in Melbourne's northwest. Senior reporter Darby Travers has the latest.
It's day 2 into our 5-day stage 4 lockdown after the Holiday Inn COVID-19 cluster exploded. Victorians are now only allowed to leave their homes for 4 reasons: shopping for essentials, giving care, essential work and education, and exercise for 2 hours per day with household members and intermediate partner, or one other person only, while masks are now mandatory everywhere. A cafe inside Melbourne Airport is among the lengthening list of exposure sites, with almost every state reintroducing some form of restrictions at their borders due to fears of interstate transmission. Virus fragments detected in wastewater in Melbourne's northwest have also been linked to one of the infections in the cluster. It's now been revealed that a COVID-positive guest inside the Holiday Inn hotel reportedly used a nebulizer, a medical device banned from hotel quarantine, which turns a liquid drug, usually one used to treat diseases like asthma, into vapor to go down the patient's airways. Doctors have described the devices as COVID spreaders, but whether it's caused the virus to spread is still being investigated. This is just the latest in a spate of hotel quarantine debacles, all involving the UK strain of the virus, renewing calls for quarantine workers to be equipped with better PPE and for hotel ventilation systems to be reviewed. New details about Friday's anti-lockdown protest have also been released online, with the post on Facebook revealing that it was planned ahead of any potential lockdown announcement by Premier Daniel Andrews. 6 News also understands that some schools ask students to bring their workbooks home in case the restrictions were extended. You can find the latest developments by following us on social media. Just search 6 News AU to find us.
There was checkpoint chaos at the Victoria-South Australia border, with a truckie killed in a fiery 3-truck pileup. A B-double carrying chemicals rear-ended another truck before igniting. The chaos came after South Australia's snap decision to close its border to anyone from Greater Melbourne, which created a kilometre-long queue at the border. Every Australian state and territory except New South Wales has since tightened their border with Victoria. Millions of doses of the Pfizer COVID-19 vaccine will be allowed to leave the EU after the European Commission formally approved shipments to Australia and 23 other countries. The announcement came as welcome news after the EU placed export controls on vaccines produced in its territory, despite fears that would delay the rollout. The first shipments are set to arrive within weeks. The Pfizer vaccine is currently the only vaccine in Australia that has been approved by the TGA. Prime Minister Scott Morrison says Australia is on track for the first wave of vaccinations to occur by the end of this month. Frontline health and quarantine workers, as well as those in aged care, will be first in line. The World Health Organization's long-awaited probe into the origins of COVID-19 has left more questions than answers into how and where the virus started. The month-long investigation by a team of more than a dozen experts all but dispelled the theory that COVID-19 leaked from a Wuhan lab. They say the virus most likely jumped from animal to human, while bats remain a suspect. They couldn't find any evidence that they were from Wuhan, raising the possibility that COVID-19 was present outside of China before that outbreak. However, transmission of the virus through a frozen wild animal is also a possibility, a claim China has repeatedly pushed, citing traces of the virus on foreign food packaging. Experts warn it often takes years to identify the species in which a virus normally lives, as was the case for SARS. Staying overseas now, and patience is wearing thin in Myanmar as the military coup enters its second week. Myanmar police have used water cannons, rubber bullets and warning shots in a bid to disperse protesters. Those protesters have defied bans on large gatherings, seemingly unfazed by threats from the coup leader that action will be taken against large rallies. Reuters is now reporting that one female protester was shot in the head during a confrontation with police and is not expected to survive. The US and the United Nations have both condemned the use of force against protesters, calling for an end to the military coup. Joe Biden signs an executive order on Thursday, paving the way for the US to impose sanctions on the leader of that coup. The first round of targets will be identified in the coming week.
The assault on Burma's transition to democracy remains an issue of deep bipartisan concern. We've consulted at length, for example, with Senator McConnell, who has had a very keen interest in this, and his team, and we welcome their helpful insights. We've also been in close contact with our allies and partners around the world, particularly in the Indo-Pacific region, driving vigorous diplomatic outreach to help coordinate an international response to what happened. The strong and unified message emerging from the United States has been essential, in our view, to encouraging other countries to join us in pressing for immediate return to democracy. Violence against those asserting their democratic rights is unacceptable, and we're going to keep calling it out. The people of Burma are making their voices heard, and the world is watching. We'll be ready to impose additional measures, and we'll continue to work with our international partners to urge other nations to join us in these efforts.
Back home now, when government MPs are divided over Scott Morrison's ambitious new climate preference, net zero emissions by 2050. The Prime Minister has signalled that he will make the goal government policy before the next election, but Agriculture Minister and the Deputy Leader of the Nationals, David Littleproud, has said that Australians are sick of platitudes and politicians talking about big aspirations but no way of getting there. The National Party believes that the Morrison government should follow the New Zealand model and exclude agriculture from the pledge to cut emissions. More than 110 other countries have also committed to net zero emissions by 2050. Israeli researchers say they've made a huge breakthrough in the quest to find a cure for COVID. Preliminary trials of an experimental drug have shown positive results. 29 out of 30 patients with moderate to severe symptoms were reportedly cured within just days of treatment. Participants inhaled the drug transmitting the naturally occurring CD24 protein directly into the lungs to control the immune response. Several other labs around the world have also tried to counter the potentially lethal immune overreaction to the coronavirus infection, but failed. With the current sample size of just 30, the treatment will now enter further trial phases. Greece is also set to take part. Israel's PM says the drug could change the fate of humanity. Last week, the American Food and Goods Administration granted emergency use authorization to a COVID-19 therapy, combining two antibody drugs that may fight virus variants better than the treatment already in use. After 23 years, the final siren has blown for Eddie McGuire, who stepped down as the Collingwood president after pressure mounted against the media mogul to resign. Claims of systemic racism were detailed in a bombshell report that alleged a long-running culture of structural and systemic racism at the club. Eddie came under fire for addressing the media the day after the report and calling it a proud day for the club. He has since retracted those statements and said his resignation should allow the club and players to once again focus on the game. Directors Peter Murphy and Mark Corder will now share the role as interim co-presidents until a full-time successor can be found. A normal winter's evening has turned disastrous for dozens of drivers in Texas. Take a look at this disturbing vision. More than 130 cars were involved in a mass pile-up that has left at least 6 people dead and scores more fighting for life. One Twitter user captured the horror of multiple fully loaded semi-trailers ploughing into crash cars with occupants inside. And we do warn you, this may be disturbing for some viewers.
Ooh, now look at this. God damn.
In some good news though, local rescuers worked throughout the night and into the morning to free trapped drivers and a dog. The local fire department freeing the dog in distress, saying the rescue was perfect, that he is expected to make a full recovery. It's been revealed that basketball legend Kobe Bryant's pilot broke the boundaries of acceptable bad weather flying, which resulted in the helicopter entering the clouds and crashing, according to American federal authorities. Investigators believe that the pilot had formed a close personal relationship with Bryant, which resulted in pressure to fly under all conditions. The former Lakers player and NBA Hall of Famer was killed along with his daughter and several others when his helicopter crashed into a foggy Southern California hillside last year. The full report will be handed down in the coming months. Well, checking tomorrow's forecast right across the country, Brisbane partly cloudy, a top of 29, Sydney 22, heavy clouds, 14 degrees in the nation's capital, 27 degrees in Melbourne, pretty nice weather, but doesn't matter when you're trapped inside, heavy showers in Hobart 19, Adelaide sunny 29, Perth starting the day at 23 and getting up to 35, and in Darwin, normal weather for them, heavy storms and a top of 30. Before we go tonight, just a quick tease. We've got a massive exclusive story coming up in the next few days. It's not lockdown related, but it's certainly something you won't see anywhere else. We'll have a promo for that out sometime tomorrow, but it is certainly something you don't want to miss. That is 6 News. For this very busy Sunday evening, you can stay up to date with the latest news on Trump's impeachment and Victoria's COVID-19 lockdown by simply following us on social media, Facebook, Twitter and Instagram. Just search 6 News A to find us. I'm Leonardo Puglisi. Thanks for your company. Good night.